What's up, everybody? It's Dingers with the boys. That's with Boys with a Z. I'm Tim. I'm here with the slippery serpent, Kyle.
Yo, what up, everybody? Hope you guys had a good Thanksgiving, good weekend. Definitely ate a lot of food. I know me and Tim both had a great weekend and great Thanksgiving. If you didn't listen to our last episode, it's actually called Thanksgiving. That's because we kind of went over the NFL Thanksgiving games, little facts about Thanksgiving games. We each had a draft of our favorite Thanksgiving foods, as well as talked about some events, past, present, future, that both me and Tim wish we could have gone to or could go in the future. So if you haven't listened to that, definitely go take a listen to it, share it with your friends, family, and let us know what you think.
Yep, and we do appreciate you guys listening and commenting. We had Steve comment on our last one, talking about his top events he'd like to go to. He also picked Miracle on Ice. Another one he picked was Serena Williams' first Grand Slam, which would have been awesome just knowing the tennis player that she's become, and everybody knows who she is. Arguably the best tennis player to ever play, men or women, honestly. And then he also had Muhammad Ali knocking out George Foreman in 8 rounds to win back the belt, which would have been awesome. Muhammad Ali, yeah, definitely the GOAT, greatest of all time. And that would have been an awesome experience to be a part of for sure.
Yeah, those would be awesome events for sure. So shout out to Steve for commenting on that and letting us know what events he'd like to go to.
Yep. And let's go ahead and talk about a little bit about our picks from last week. We picked all the Thanksgiving games, and like Kyle said, hopefully you all had a great Thanksgiving. Got all that food, turkey, ham, potatoes, whatever you like. Hopefully you guys had a great time with your family, had a great weekend. But 3 games we picked. We had the Packers and the Lions. Unfortunately, me and Kyle both picked Detroit Lions, and the Packers just came out with a vengeance, and they ended up beating the Lions 29-22.
Yep, and it was kind of surprising that it ended up being that close, because if you watch that game, it didn't really seem close at all. Basically, from the start, Packers got a fumble for a touchdown pretty early on, and it kind of just seemed like they were in the driver's seat most of the game.
Yeah, like you said, it was kind of crazy that it got to within 7 points. I thought the Packers were going to win by double digits easily, but Jordan Love played a great game. He had 268 yards, 3 touchdowns. Amazing game. Probably one of the best games he's had as a pro, honestly. And then Jared Goff, unfortunately, he just kind of started coming back a little too late. He ended up finishing with 332 yards, which not a bad day at all, and 2 touchdowns, but it was just kind of a little too late. And like you said, if you watch the game, it didn't seem as close as the final score reflected.
Yeah.
And so, but yeah, we were both wrong on that one on our picks. The next one we had was the Cowboys and Commanders. Cowboys whooped 45-10. We kind of both thought that was coming. Dak finished with 331 yards, 4 touchdowns. Tony Pollard had 79 rushing yards. He also had 6 receptions for 24 yards and a touchdown on the ground. Both those guys just came to play. And, of course, the Cowboys defense, like Kyle said, last week they ended up scoring a touchdown. And that's just what they do. They were getting to Sam Howell, giving them pressure, and they're definitely a fun team to watch right now.
Yeah, exactly. It was definitely a fun game to watch. We hit the nail right on the head on that. It didn't seem like the Cowboys really had any worries. And, I mean, the first half kind of started slow. Still with, like, Dallas controlling things. But then in that final quarter and final, second half, it just kind of went into overdrive and just kind of piled it on. But, yeah, we were right on the money with that one.
Yep. And the last one we picked was the 49ers and Seahawks. 49ers kind of handily took it to the Seahawks 31-13. And like both of us predicted Christian McCaffrey killed it. He had 114 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 5 receptions, 25 yards. Pretty much just doing whatever he wanted, honestly. He's just a little too much, I think, for the Seahawks. And then Debo actually killed it too. He had 1 rushing touchdown, and then 7 receptions for 79 yards. And we could go on about a couple other players, but those 2 guys definitely showed out. And it's hard to stop Christian McCaffrey. Doesn't matter who you are. He's pretty much doing whatever he wants. He's just that type of player.
It definitely looked like the Seahawks were making a push to get back in it. After the second half, they were only down by 7, and they had the ball, and they could have scored and to make it a close game, but ended up having to settle for a field goal. And then from there, I think the 49ers just controlled everything, and they just ended up getting a pretty big win.
Yeah, it seems like they're kind of getting back on track a little bit after a couple weeks that they kind of were struggling a little bit.
Yeah, a lot of people were saying, like, oh, is this 49ers team actually good because they won or they lost 2 or 3 straight? But I think since then, like, trade deadline happened, they went and got Chase Young. I think they kind of retold everybody that no, we're here to compete with the Dallas Cowboys and Eagles and the best and the Chiefs and like all the other best teams in the NFL right now. And it would have been kind of interesting. I know the Seahawks were banged up. They got some secondary injuries that were big key players out, and Geno Smith was coming in kind of banged up, and Kenneth Walker was out. So they did have some like major injuries, but so it kind of been like interesting to see how it would have turned out had those players played, but ultimately they didn't. And
yeah, I'm excited to see where the 49ers end up finishing, just how they finish. But some headlines that came out of this weekend: Michigan beat Ohio State 30-24, which is a huge game. Michigan, that was their 3rd straight win against Ohio State, and that has huge playoff implications. I find that Michigan win was a huge win just with Harbaugh being suspended as well. It's hard to play without your head coach, and I know they've been doing it a couple times, and I mean, they're a great football team, but to go and beat Ohio State is huge, saying about their character and just what kind of team they are. They're also going for the Big Ten championship for the 3rd straight time, which would be their first in school history. So that'll be interesting to see if they can get that done.
Yeah, I think Michigan kind of doesn't get the respect that they probably deserve. And I think because they're kind of looked at that, all right, they don't play as good of teams, or they're just kind of looked at as like, yeah, they're a top 4, top 5 team, but they're in like a different level than like the Georgia and like other like top 5 teams. So I think like winning this game versus Ohio State, which a lot of people do put in like that extra level, I think kind of shows that no, we're meant to be here. We belong here. And so it's definitely a great win by Michigan. It was a fun game to watch, and yeah, it was cool to see.
It'll be interesting to see if both of them have still a chance to get into that playoff. I think they definitely have a chance. It just depends on what a couple other teams do, but I personally don't like either Michigan or Ohio State, so I kind of hope they both drop out, which that won't happen. But like you said, Michigan definitely is a team that sometimes people don't like. They kind of do overlook them, at least in that like top couple contenders. And like, yeah, they're a contender, but they're really not gonna contend. You know, it's like you said, like Georgia and stuff. But yeah, it'll be interesting. I think, especially when they get Harbaugh back after his suspension, it'll be fun to see what they can do. Another thing was the Washington Commanders ended up firing their defensive coordinator, Jack Del Rio. That was after the game on Thanksgiving, which Del Rio, he's been around a long time. He's been head coach, defensive coordinator, but the Commanders just don't have it going this year. They rank the worst in the points allowed in the league. They're 29th in yards allowed. Last year, they were 7th and 3rd in those categories, which it's like, what happened? And at the beginning of the year, their defensive line was considered one of the best defensive lines in the league. And then they traded, of course, Montez Sweat and Chase Young. Just needed to change some stuff up, and they weren't like just not doing good as a team. And it's crazy. They haven't had an interception in the past 6 games or a turnover in the last 3 games. So I think they definitely needed to change something. And we'll see if Del Rio's actually the reason, you know?
I kind of think like, I think Washington is just pushing the reset button, and Del Rio is just kind of the fall guy. That's my personal opinion. Because, yeah, like Tim said, they were a top 10 defense literally last year. It's not like it was 5 years ago, and not much had changed. It's just, it wasn't working this year. So I think them trading away Young and Sweet, I think that kind of showed that, hey, what we think we had isn't working. So we're just going to kind of push reset and hopefully try again, get some draft capital and try again. So I think that's what this move is. And personally, I don't think it really is Del Rio's fault, but I think he is the fall guy for this.
I definitely don't think it'll be the last time we see Del Rio. I think he'll end up somewhere as a defensive coordinator or even possibly a head coach.
Yeah.
He definitely seems to make teams better that he's on, so we'll kind of see. I wonder if Bieniemy is regretting his decision going into Washington, because everybody is saying that he wasn't getting a head coaching job because he was with the Chiefs and they were just so good, and Andy Reid did a lot of the offense and stuff, so they're not playing bad, and Sam Hell's actually playing pretty good, but I wonder if he regrets it at all, or if he wishes he would have stayed with the Chiefs or tried something else.
Yeah, I mean, who knows? And Ron Rivera is another guy that he's got to be feeling like his seat is really hot right now, and I wouldn't be surprised if Washington fires him as well. But
yeah. Kind of depending on how the rest of the season goes. In other news that's not really in the season is the Major League Baseball came out with their Hall of Fame ballot and got a few people on there. First-timers, Adrian Beltre, Joe Mauer, Chase Utley, some of the more notable ones. Beltre definitely has potential to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. A couple notables that are still on it that are kind of trending toward enshrinement. Got Todd Helton in his 6th try, Billy Wagner in his 9th, Andrew Jones in his 7th. And then we also got Jerry Sheffield, who he's the only one this year that it's his 10th and last chance to get in. He had 55% last year. He's in the 500 home run club. We'll see if he can get it done. You need 75% of the votes to get in, which is about 292 votes. So it'll be interesting to see which one of those guys or who gets in this year.
I think personally, I could definitely see Adrian Beltre getting first timer. He was so much fun to watch, and he was one of those players that he loved goofing around with all the other players and just goofing around with like his other teammates and all that stuff, and just brought like such a joy to the game. And then he still he dominated. So I think it's hard in MLB. MLB is very stingy, I think, when it comes to first ballot Hall of Famers. There's not a lot of them, but I think with how well liked he was, with how much he dominated the game and how good he was, I think he could actually be really good.
See, that's something I don't get. And I don't know if I like it. I don't like it. I'll just say I don't really like it. Like you said, the MLB's stingy on their first ballot Hall of Famers. For me, I'm like, what's the difference between a third time ballot Hall of Famer and a seventh? They're both in the Hall of Fame. And it's almost like that they put something on like, oh, hey, this guy's a first, second, third ballot Hall of Famer, so he's a lot better than you that are 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th ballot Hall of Famers. Who cares? They're in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's still in the same hall, still in the same, built. It's still like the same accolade. You're still going to be given a speech. You're still going to get
You're enshrined into history no matter what.
So I agree with you there. I think it's more just like they're trying to differentiate the talent gap, maybe. I don't, like, whether I agree with it or not, I can kind of see why they do it. But yeah, it's just, I don't understand it as well. And another thing I don't understand is, so Todd Helton, he's in his 6th year. This will be his 6th year in the ballot. And I personally think he should have been in the Hall of Fame already.
Yeah.
And the people and the reason why he's not is because he played at Coors Field. He was a career Rocky. He played 17 years, 16 years, and he was with the Colorado Rockies his whole time. And everybody, it's like they punish him for it.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know why he's being punished for being a loyal teammate. It's not like Todd Helton is, hey, I want you guys to build Coors Field in this way and stuff like that. That might have been a reason why he wanted to stay here, but it probably wasn't. Like,
yeah,
so why is the Hall of Fame kind of punishing him?
Yeah, you'd think that he'd want to win more. And the Rockies definitely had some rough seasons with him. And so he's not just thinking, oh, if I stay in Coors Field, then all right, my stats might be up a little bit, so I'm going to get in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I think
instead of winning a World Series, going somewhere and winning a World Series or something.
Yeah, I think if people were like that, then Aaron Judge would be a Colorado Rocky. Shohei Ohtani would be a Colorado Rocky. They're
exactly, just trying to break
literally
records.
Come here to break records and pad their stats, but
yeah,
that's not how they work. So
I just think, hey, if you're a Hall of Famer, you should be in the Hall of Fame. If it takes you 10 years, if it takes you 1 year, it just it doesn't make sense to me. I don't like it. I don't know. Maybe as more of a baseball players or baseball bigger fans than I am, maybe they understand it more. If you are and you're listening, let us know what you think. Put it on our comments. Let us know why they do it. Maybe you guys have some better insight and stuff, but I definitely would like to know a little bit more, and hopefully you guys can tell us something.
Yeah, I think it's definitely crazy, and there's a ton of like names that it's surprising that they're not in the Hall of Fame, and
yep.
I think just like MLB just seems so much more stingy when it comes to people making the Hall of Fame, but
it's pretty crazy though that out of like the four major leagues in the North America, they're all pretty similar of the amount of people and stuff in the Hall of Fame. And like you said, the MLB seems more stingy, but it's actually pretty similar, in all of them. But I don't know. We're going to take a break here. You can hear a sponsor or an ad here from our sponsor, Colorado Hat Company, and we'll be back in a minute.
You're doing Christmas shopping and you're stuck in a lurch. Come on down to Colorado Hat and check out our merch. Colorado Hat Company, located at Colorado Mills Mall. Tell them the Dingers sent you.
Welcome back, everybody. It is Dingers with the Boyz. That's Boyz with a Z. Go check us out on YouTube, Spotify, Twitter, TK Dingers. That was a word from our sponsor, Colorado Hat Company. Definitely go check them out. They got awesome hats, awesome deals and everything. Go check them out. But I'm Tim. I'm here with the Slippery Serpent, Kyle.
Yo, what up, everybody? So we're going to stay in the MLB field. You guys have probably seen that the Oakland Athletics have just got permission from all the owners to actually move to Las Vegas. That's going to be in the next 2 years. And so we just wanted to kind of look and go in depth of different expansions in all 4 major sports and just kind of some history about it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how the Athletics do over in Vegas, because I think that's definitely a huge market right now with the Raiders going there, and there's definitely talks about some other things. We had the Vegas Golden Knights go there in 2017 as an expansion team, and they won the Stanley Cup. I think that makes it huge. So I think Vegas is a hot market right now. And it's funny because I don't even know if it's the people in Vegas necessarily that are the biggest fans of Vegas, but the teams that are coming there, their fans are going to travel because Vegas is a huge travel destination anyways.
Yep.
And so you're going to have fans, and your ticket prices are crazy high, and people will pay them and stuff. So it'll definitely be interesting to see kind of what the Athletics do. And I know the Athletics haven't had great fans necessarily, at least a huge fan support in at least the last few years.
Well, I think a big reason why they're going down in audience and attendance is I know a bunch of fans were kind of wanting them to move, so they're almost boycotting going. But I actually think the Athletics moving to Vegas is going to be a really great move for them, because Vegas to me actually does sound like a baseball town. So Vegas has a baseball team. It's actually the Athletics AAA affiliate team, the Las Vegas Aviators. And in the last few seasons, in 2021 and 2029, they actually led all AAA in attendance.
2022.
Yeah, 2022. So they actually led all AAA in attendance, which for a AAA game, if you've ever been to one, you usually don't know the players. You usually don't know anything. You're more of a baseball fan instead of I'm coming here to see this player. A lot of the games are more audience interaction and stuff like that. So it definitely seems like it's a baseball town, or else people wouldn't really be going and they wouldn't be leading attendance.
Yeah, that's crazy. Out of all the AAAs, Vegas is leading in attendance a couple of years. And yeah, like you said, that's more, you're probably more of a baseball fan. It could also be a lot of families, I feel go to the AAAs as well, just because, like you said, there is a lot of fan interaction.
Yeah.
And you're just going out, and it's probably a lot cheaper than a major league sports. But it definitely is interesting to see that, and hopefully that'll go along when the Athletics come in a couple of years as well. And this is technically, it's not an expansion. This is a movement of a team. And so it will be interesting to see how that does. And if after that, Major League Baseball does expand to a couple more teams. Right now they got 30 teams. The last actual expansion team that they had was in 1998. It was the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Tampa Bay Devil Rays as well, who are now obviously the Tampa Bay Rays. But it'll be interesting to see if they end up bringing a couple other teams possibly to make it up to 32.
Yeah, that would be definitely fun to see. It would definitely be fun to see them get up to 32. It's kind of weird on where they would move to. But it would be it would definitely be cool to see. There's a lot of maybe North Carolina or some big baseball towns.
Yeah, so even kind of say New Orleans or something like that. Yeah. They don't have really anything, and they
especially with LSU just winning the college
exactly. They seem to have some
championship last year.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, it'd be interesting. And then I know you mentioned the Raiders too in the NFL. They moved their last expansion in the NFL was the Houston Texans in 2002, so they don't really have an expansion team per se in a while. They do have the movement of the Raiders, which can't like. I mean, Oakland was rough for them, and they still have such a huge following. It seems like in Vegas.
Yeah. So the Vegas, they moved to, or the Raiders, not Vegas. Raiders moved to Vegas back in 2020, and since then, 1.1 million fans have gone to see Raiders games. In 2022, they were actually second in revenue, only behind the Dallas Cowboys. But one thing that I was like kind of surprised by, they're still bottom 5 in attendance since 2015. In 2015, they were ranked 30th in team value. Since then, they've just skyrocketed. I mean, it seems like everybody's wanting a piece of the Raiders.
Yeah.
Tom Brady, he's a part owner.
Yep.
And they have a few other people that are part owners.
So. I wonder if that attendance too, because you said as of 2015, so there was definitely a few of those last years in Oakland that I'm sure their fan support and stuff was definitely down and their attendance was down. And so I'd like to see it in a few years once they've been in Vegas for 5-6 years and see after that. And like you said, since they moved to Vegas and last year they had second in revenue only behind Cowboys, which everybody says is America's team. And I definitely think it was the right move for them. I've been to the stadium and I loved the stadium. I do not like the Raiders, but I loved the stadium. It was so awesome. It was just a great atmosphere. The dome, I am definitely for domes. Broncos ever want to get a dome, I am for it.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
So it's just, even if it's cold, if it's warm, like so hot, it's just perfect in there. And it just was so nice.
They definitely have gone up in attendance. They were averaging around 54,000 per game in the bad years, like 2015 through 2018. And now they're averaging around 62,000. And it could also just be that Vegas is such a weird market for like sports, because not a lot of people live in Las Vegas. They don't really have local fans. It's more like Tim said earlier, people are flying in to see their team, so they're kind of having to rely on those people, like, to fly in and be like, oh, there's a football game this weekend, why don't we go? Like,
yeah, and something must be working, because now they're going to have 3 major, out of the 4 major like sports in the North America, they're going to have 3 teams there. But it'll be interesting to see what the NFL does, because they have talked about expansion possibly out in Europe. So it'll be interesting to see if they do that. They already have 32 teams, so I don't know if they would necessarily move somebody or just completely expand.
I think the thing that would trip up NFL ever moving to Europe is just the travel times.
Yep.
And like the jet lag, even though they're traveling in world-class jets and
it's
first
still
class
a long time.
and all that, it's still taxing, it's still difficult, and even though like games are only 1 week, it would be kind of tough. But I could see the NFL, instead of maybe having an expansion team, have like a mini tournament maybe out in Europe, and have like, all right, 2 games in Berlin, kind of like what they do now, but like 2 games in Germany, 2 games in London, and then a winner plays in London, and then, or something like that. I think that would be kind of cool. It would kind of feel expansion-y, but not necessarily an expansion. And you could maybe just pick like 4 teams, or like 4 to 8 teams or something, and you could just send them over to Europe for like a month or
for
something.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
And then so that would take down like the jet lag and all that kind of stuff. But I think that would be pretty cool.
I think eventually they're going to definitely do something. Talking about the other 2 major leagues in the North America, NHL and NBA, NHL seems to be expanding a little bit more than other leagues per se, at least as of recent. They're up to 32 teams. They had 7-team expansion in the 90s. Their last one was Seattle Kraken in 2021. Like we said earlier, Vegas in 2017. Both those organizations are doing pretty good. It was crazy to me that the Atlanta Thrashers were an expansion team in 1999. And in 2008, they had the All-Star game in Atlanta. And they moved then to Winnipeg in 2011. So obviously something wasn't working that great in Atlanta. But it's just crazy to me how quick an expansion team, because I'm sure there's so much research that goes into where these teams should be and everything. An expansion team in 99, and then in 12 years, they're already moving to another city because it obviously didn't work out. And I'm sure that also is with winning and losing and everything. I know they only made one playoff appearance, but it's definitely different. In the NBA, there hasn't really been any expansion teams as of late. We had in the early 2000s, there was the New Orleans Hornets, Charlotte Bobcats. Now the Hornets are the Pelicans. Bobcats are now the Charlotte Hornets. There was some weird stuff there. Technically, it was Charlotte that moved to New Orleans, but then the NBA awarded Charlotte with an expansion team, so they just took all the records for them, and there was definitely some weird thing. But I could see in the future, I know NBA, they have 30 teams right now. They have talked about expanding, and I think Seattle and Vegas are definitely at the top of their list. However, I could see even in a few years after that, they add another almost division out in Europe. Because basketball is huge in Europe. I think the NBA's done so great. You see all these foreign players and everything. But if you have 5 or 6 teams out in Europe, saying like Amsterdam, Paris, Berlin, London, Barcelona, Rome, Madrid, Athens, something like a combination of that, it's their own division, and you have a few teams go out there for like a week and a half, play all them, and then they come here and play all of them and stuff. And so then you're staying out there for a week and a half, 2 weeks. But I think that is definitely a possibility that if the NBA hasn't looked yet, they could look into, just because of how big the NBA is out there, and you see all these foreign players and everything. And I think that could be a very interesting twist to some expansion for sure.
Yeah. I think if NBA ever did that, they'd probably have a huge success with that, and that would start kind of the other sports of like, man, why didn't we think of this? Or like, hey, we want a piece of that pie kind of thing. So
yeah,
I definitely can see that happening. Another thing I can definitely see, and this not necessarily has to be an expansion thing, but I think LeBron, once he finally does retire, he's definitely going to be owning a team.
At least somewhat, some part.
Whether it be in Vegas or Seattle or whatever. And I could honestly see him, like Bronny, playing for whatever team he owns, because Bronny will hopefully be in the league for quite some time once he gets drafted, and I think that would be a definitely like huge NBA headline that LeBron is owning on the team that he owns, has his son, and I think that would be a really cool story. But
yeah, it would be kind of crazy to play for your dad almost. Yeah, that'd be interesting. Before we move on a little bit, I just want to mention the WNBA as well. They definitely are expanding as like currently as well. They announced that in 2025, San Francisco / Oakland, it's going to be based in Oakland, will get an expansion team out there, which is very interesting because it seems like everybody's like kind of moving out of that area. However, WNBA is moving in there, and I think it could be because of Golden State has so much success, and so they're going to hopefully piggyback off of that. But I did find it interesting that the cost of that team out in California it's $50 million over 10 years is what they had to pay for the expansion team. And so right now the WNBA is at 12 teams. That'll be the 13th team. I think the commissioner, Kathy Engelbert, she did mention that she thinks that there will be a 14th team by 2025, and that's when the other California team will be as well. And I know some other cities have been kind of thought about, at least Toronto, Philadelphia, Portland, Sacramento, or Denver, which I am a huge supporter of a Denver WNBA team. I would love that. That'd be so great. Denver, I think, is just a huge sports town. And so I think the WNBA is definitely going in the right direction. And kind of how we talked about last week, just the women's game is evolving so much, and there's so much more support. And it would definitely be fun to get the WNBA up to 16, 18, 20 teams. And I think it definitely could be in the future, at least in the next 10, 15 years. I think you can see that.
I am also excited, and this isn't really expansion-y, but WNBA, they are going to do a summer or off-season little tiny league. It's just going to be like 3-on-3. So that's going to be definitely fun to watch.
Yeah, it'll just be definitely nice to keep it going. Yep. Yeah. But let's go ahead and do our 3 picks for this week. Before we go into that, definitely comment on our Twitter, on our YouTube, Spotify. Let us know what you guys think about the expansion teams and different cities that they could go to, or different teams that are currently in the leagues that you think should move to another city and why. And we'll definitely comment back on you, and we can get a little discussion going. But our 3 picks for this week, we got the 76ers at the Celtics. This is a huge premier matchup. It'll be nice to see Embiid, Jason Tatum kind of go at it. I'm going to go with the Celtics on this one. I just think that Jason Tatum, how he's playing, Jaylen Brown's playing great, Porzingis, and I think just as a team, the Celtics defense is so good. I think they can definitely get the win. So I'm going to go with the Celtics on this one.
I'm also going to go with the Celtics. They're the home team, and I think one of the biggest reasons why the 76ers are doing so well right now is Tyrese Maxey. And I think Drew Holiday is a great defender. I think he's able to lock him up, maybe limit him to not going off for 28, 30 points like he has been. Celtics, they also got Porzingis, they got Tatum, Brown, Derek White. They really basically got an all-star squad as their starting 5. And while the 76ers are also good, I think Celtics being the home team, I think they squeak out a win. It's going to be very close. But
Yeah, I think it'll be a great game, but those were great points that you made. Next one we got in women's college basketball, we got Notre Dame taking on Tennessee. Great big top 25 matchup. On Notre Dame side, you got Hannah Hidalgo, Sonia Citron. On Tennessee side, you got Jasmine Powell and Jewel Spear. Just playing great ball, both teams. This is a tough one for me because I'm a huge Notre Dame fan, but I also really like Tennessee as well. Notre Dame is averaging 61.8 points per game, and Tennessee's averaging 83.5 points per game. So that's a 21.7 point per game difference, which is crazy to think about, like how big of a difference it is. But with being such a fan, I gotta go with Notre Dame. I think Hannah Hidalgo, the freshman, she's gonna kill it. I think that she's gonna definitely take Notre Dame to the win, hopefully, even though it's going to be a really hard matchup.
I'm also a very big fan of both of these teams, but I'm going to have to go with Tennessee. I think being the home team again, they're going to have home court advantage. That place is going to be super loud, super pumping, and I don't see Notre Dame being able to keep up with Tennessee offensively. I think Tennessee will get the win.
Yeah, that was a tough one for me. I mean, I hope Notre Dame wins, but like you said, I'm a huge Tennessee fan as well, both of us for sure. Our last one and our biggest one, because we're actually going to this game, the Dingers will be in Vegas. Oregon versus Washington for the Pac-12 championship. Got Oregon going 11-1 this season, Washington 12-0 undefeated. This is going to be such a fun time. Can't wait. QBs both great on both sides. You got Nix and Penix, running backs Irving and Johnson, wide receivers Franklin and Odunze. Odunze is great wide receiver for Washington. I think he can definitely power through. This is a really hard one. I actually kind of think Washington might be the underdog going into this, even though they are undefeated. And they are the home team technically. I'm going to go with Washington. I think they're going to do it. I think they're going to go 13-0, get themselves to the national championship, the playoffs, and see what they can do. I'm going to go with Washington, but I think it's a tough one, and I could see Oregon definitely making it hard for them.
I'm also going to go with Washington. I think they got the better defense. They got, I think, the better quarterback. And I think they're just kind of going to go in underlooked. Like Tim said, I think they're going to kind of go in as the underdog, and so many people they kind of just like write them off of like, oh yeah, well, Washington isn't that good, but I mean, they just keep on winning. So I think they're definitely it's gonna be probably their toughest matchup for sure, but I think Oregon has holes. They've shown that they can lose. They've already lost once, but Washington hasn't, so I'm going to go with them.
Yeah, we'll see what happens, but let's go into Kyle's 2 players to watch of the week.
Yeah, so first person, well, I'll first do a recap of who I kind of highlighted last week. So I highlighted Giannis. He had some big games against Boston. Didn't end up winning, but still played pretty well. And then he did play really well against Washington. Brought him to an easy win versus there. And then the other player I highlighted was Deebo Samuel. And you guys heard earlier that he had a great game. He had a rushing touchdown. He had 79 yards receiving. Was definitely a mismatch for that Seahawks defense. So he definitely had a pretty good game. For the 2 players this week, I'm actually going to go with Tyrese Maxey. He's playing a really great ball right now. He ranks 25th in player efficiency rating, and he's got some big matchups. We already talked about Boston, but he also plays the Pelicans, who are playing super well right now, and I think he can do enough to bring his team some games. Obviously, I picked the Celtics earlier to lose, but still, I think Tyrese Maxey is going to be a force to be reckoned with this week, and definitely a player to highlight. For my second one, I'm going with De'Aaron Fox. I think he's going to have a really, really good week this week. He plays for the Kings. He ranks number 12 in player efficiency rating this year currently, and he's going to have a 4-game home stretch versus the Warriors, Clippers, Nuggets, and the Nets. I think that 4-game home stretch will definitely be great for him. So definitely a player to watch this weekend for lots of great games.
Awesome. Thanks for those picks, Kyle. If you guys want to know any more bets or anything like that, picks, go ahead and go follow us on Twitter, TK Dingers. We put picks out there every single day. We think that they're going to hit, and some things that you guys can do. And definitely keep an eye on those 2 players. But this is the end of our show. Again, we're going to the Pac-12 championship next week. Rematch of Oregon, Washington. Let's see if Oregon can get it done. They lost to Washington earlier this year, but just can't wait. Next week, we also are going to have a couple huge guests on our show. Can't wait for you guys to listen to them. Can't believe we got them to join us in Vegas.
To that.
Yep, they'll be going to the game with us. We'll have our reaction next week, and just definitely tune in to see what we all say about it, But that's it. We hope you guys have a great week, and we'll see you later, alligators.
Peace.
Peace.